The scent of hot solder and ozone was the air I breathed. For 25 years, those sharp metallic smells defined my purpose, my passion, and my entire world. I was 46 years old, and my life had been spent in the solitary, exhilarating pursuit of invention. My modest, specialized workshop in Portland, Oregon, was a sanctuary, a cluttered haven where I, Eliot Vance, a self-taught industrial designer and engineer, transformed abstract concepts into tangible, revolutionary prototypes. My most significant achievement, the culmination of a decade of obsessive research, was a compact, highly efficient thermal regulation system designed to stabilize extreme temperatures in next-generation industrial batteries. This technology was poised to solve the critical overheating flaw plaguing the entire sustainable energy sector, guaranteeing not just success, but a permanent place in the history of green technology. The man who stole that achievement and poisoned my life was Dr. Adrian Sterling. Adrian was my college roommate, my confidant, and, for a brief, trusting period, the business partner I brought in to secure external funding. Adrian possessed a doctorate from Stanford and a Polish that I lacked. He saw the world in dollar signs and press releases. I saw it in schematics and material science. I needed his network. He needed my genius. I foolishly granted him full, unrestricted access to the Aura prototype, the physical device, the proprietary algorithms, and the complete unpublished patent application drafts, under a handshake agreement, believing our shared history was sufficient collateral against betrayal. The betrayal was not swift, but calculated and drawn out, like a slow-acting poison. In January 2020, Adrian scheduled a crucial meeting with a major venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. I was confined to my bed, recovering from a sudden, debilitating viral illness that kept me isolated for 3 critical weeks. Adrian took the meeting alone, presenting the Aura system. When I finally emerged, still weak, but eager for the results, Adrian's face was cold, his words clipped. He informed me the firm had passed on the opportunity, citing unresolved scaling issues that needed further development. He convinced me to let him take the prototype and documentation for safekeeping while I recovered. I, trusting his judgment and weakened by illness, agreed. 2 months later, the truth hit me with the force of a wrecking ball. A sleek, highly publicized press release announced the launch of ThermoCore Solutions, a new venture-backed startup founded by Dr. Adrian Sterling. Their core product, a compact, highly efficient thermal regulation system for industrial batteries, the Aura system, rebranded as Core Temp, with a few minor superficial aesthetic changes. Adrian had used my 3-week absence, the key meeting, and the trusted documentation to file the critical patent application under his sole name, severing all professional and legal ties to me. The patent was granted in record time, guaranteeing Adrian billions and locking me completely out of my own invention. When I confronted him, a chaotic, furious phone call where I demanded the truth, Adrian's voice was low, laced with contempt, and completely unrepentant. "Eliot, you were too slow. You were always too focused on the beauty of the design, not the business reality. I had to file the patent under my name to secure the funding. Legally, you were an unpaid consultant, and your work was a contribution to the partnership that I generously dissolved." He then delivered the final, chilling blow. He launched a preemptive smear campaign, circulating rumors within our small professional community that I, Eliot Vance, was a brilliant but unstable mind whose early designs were too flawed to scale, effectively labeling me as the discarded, unbalanced inventor whose ideas Adrian, the stable businessman, had merely refined. He smiled as he spread the lies, knowing I was financially and legally powerless to fight his entrenched corporate structure. For years, I stayed silent while he spread lies, the shame and rage of my stolen legacy burning a solitary hole in my existence. I lost my life's work, my financial stability, and my professional honor, but the rage was a pure, cold energy. Adrian thought I was broken, a marginalized eccentric. He forgot that the true power of a great invention lies in its unassailable objective design, and I was about to use that power to burn his empire down. The years that followed the theft were a period of forced, silent endurance. Adrian's lie, that I was the unstable, failed genius whose work he merely saved, was devastatingly effective. My reputation became toxic. No serious investor or established firm would partner with the unstable Eliot Vance, especially after Adrian's massive visible success with Core Temp. I was financially ruined, forced to sell my specialized equipment and shutter my workshop, retreating to a cramped borrowed basement office where I focused on small, unreliable consulting jobs merely to survive. Adrian, meanwhile, became the celebrated darling of the tech world, his face on magazine covers, his company, Thermocore Solutions, valued at $10 billion, all built entirely on my stolen invention. For 3 long years, I stayed silent, collecting the shame, the bitterness, and the unwavering conviction that his success was a monument to a profound lie. My silence wasn't born of defeat. It was strategic containment. I knew that confronting Adrian with raw anger or a financially impossible lawsuit would only reinforce his narrative of my instability. I had to wait for 2 things: a verifiable, systemic flaw in his product, and the financial resources to launch a legal war on his own ground. The Core Temp Aura system was built on my core design, which I knew was flawless, but Adrian, in his haste to commercialize and maximize profit, would have inevitably cut a corner or compromised the final material science. That compromise was the key to his destruction. I spent my nights meticulously recreating the entire final stage engineering process of the Aura system, relying entirely on my memory and my original notes. I focused on the one area Adrian lacked expertise: material thermodynamics. My original design required a rare, expensive alloy for the long-term integrity of the thermal regulation. I was certain Adrian, the businessman, would have substituted a cheaper, mass-produced composite to boost his profit margin. This substitution would not cause immediate failure, but a slow, systemic degradation under extreme, sustained industrial load, a silent, creeping flaw that would eventually lead to catastrophic failure. I needed physical proof of that material substitution. I reached out to my only remaining contact in the industry, Dr. Lina Chavez, a former mentor now running a materials science lab at the University of Washington. Lina, knowing my true brilliance, was one of the few who still trusted me. I didn't tell her the full story. I merely asked her to conduct a hyper-specific, untraceable forensic analysis of a sample of the Core Temp device, which I secretly obtained through an anonymous purchase of one of their industrial units via a shell corporation. My request was simple and precise. Lina, I need a spectroscopic analysis of the central containment alloy. I need to know if it's the high-grade titanium-chromium alloy I specified, or a cheaper nickel-iron composite. The results arrived 6 weeks later. Lina's email was terse and professional, but the content was a definitive, scientific thunderbolt. The alloy used in the Core Temp system was a nickel-iron composite, a substitution that would cut production costs by 70%, but which would inevitably fail after sustained use at the peak operating temperature required by the industrial battery sector. The failure would be spectacular, potentially causing massive property damage and irreversible reputational harm to Adrian's company. I had the scientific evidence I needed. Adrian hadn't just stolen my invention. He had poisoned it with professional negligence for personal greed, making his entire multi-billion-dollar empire a ticking time bomb. The silence of my exile was over. It was time to launch the counterattack, built on the cold, unassailable truth of material science. I know this might just be a voice in your ear, but if you've ever felt the absolute, crushing weight of stolen genius, or fought to reclaim your truth when you were falsely labeled as unstable, then you belong right here. We are a community built on the bedrock of evidence, where survival is not an accident, but an art of patience. Every time you hit that subscribe button, you are casting a vote for justice and the power of the overlooked inventor. And please, tell me in the comments below, what's the most important piece of evidence you ever needed to clear your name? Your stories are the fuel that keeps this channel dedicated to the silent, victorious battles of evidence and integrity. Thank you for being here. The spectroscopic analysis confirming the fraudulent nickel-iron composite was the critical inflection point. Adrian's entire $10 billion empire was built on a foundational material lie that I, the original engineer, could now scientifically expose. This wasn't merely grounds for a patent dispute. This was grounds for a massive product liability lawsuit, securities fraud investigation, and a complete spectacular market collapse. Adrian, the celebrated genius, was about to be revealed as a reckless, financially motivated fraudster. The shame of his initial lie, that I was unstable, would be completely overshadowed by the criminal weight of his current, massive deception. I didn't immediately file a lawsuit. That was Adrian's expected move, and it would give him time to prepare a legal defense, potentially covering up the manufacturing flaws. My strategy was pure precision, a two-pronged assault targeting the institutional credibility and the financial stability of Thermocore Solutions. The first step was to attack his scientific authority. I contacted the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, and anonymously submitted the spectroscopic analysis, along with my original comprehensive patent drafts detailing the necessity of the high-grade alloy. My filing claimed a material integrity fraud, arguing that the commercialized core temp device fundamentally violated the scientific specifications promised in the original patent filing, a violation that rendered the patent scientifically invalid and commercially dangerous. The second step was to secure the financial backing required to withstand Adrian's inevitable, desperate countersuit. I approached a large, specialized intellectual property defense fund, known for taking on high-risk, high-reward cases against large tech firms. I presented them not with a grievance, but with a perfectly packaged case of catastrophic product failure, my original documentation proving my design, Lena Chavez's unassailable scientific analysis proving the fraudulent material substitution, and my expertise predicting the timeline of inevitable structural failure. The IP fund's lead attorney, Eleanor Davis, a different, equally formidable Eleanor than my financial mentor, looked at the data, not my history, and her eyes widened with professional excitement. Dr. Vance, this isn't just theft. This is a deliberate, massive corporate fraud that endangers the entire battery sector. We'll take the case. We'll file not just for patent infringement, but for a declaratory judgment of invalidity against his patent, and we'll demand a full forensic audit of Thermocore's entire material supply chain. The power balance had finally shifted. Adrian was armed with money and lawyers. I was armed with unassailable scientific truth and a team dedicated to his absolute ruin. The legal action, once filed, sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. Adrian's initial reaction was exactly as predicted: pure, arrogant denial, followed by an immediate, massive smear campaign aimed at me. His legal team filed a countersuit for slander and extortion, once again deploying the narrative of my instability and professional bitterness. Adrian even gave a televised interview, his smile polished and condescending, stating, "My former junior assistant, Eliot Vance, is attempting a desperate shakedown based on old grievances. Our technology is pristine. His claims are paranoid fiction. For years I had been silent while he spread lies. Now every one of his lies was about to be systematically dissected by the cold, unyielding light of material science. The financial and legal noose was tightening, and I knew his empire, built on a lie, was teetering on the edge of collapse. The legal battle quickly transitioned from a simple patent dispute into a full-scale corporate catastrophe for Adrian Sterling. The USPTO, alerted by my anonymous filing, launched a quiet internal review of the core temp patent's validity. Simultaneously, Eleanor Davis, my IP lawyer, utilized the threat of the looming product liability lawsuit, a massive risk to Adrian's investors, to gain a court-mandated expedited discovery that targeted his entire manufacturing process. This was the moment I had waited for. The legal system was forcing Adrian to expose the systemic flaw he thought he had buried in the name of profit. Adrian fought the discovery request violently, claiming corporate secrecy and attorney-client privilege. His resistance only amplified the suspicion, leading the court to mandate a secure, third-party forensic audit of the core temp manufacturing facility. The audit team, led by a fiercely independent engineering firm, had access to the material suppliers, the purchase orders, and the internal quality control reports. I worked alongside Eleanor and the audit team, remotely advising them on the precise digital fingerprints and material documentation Adrian would have altered to cover the substitution. I focused on the purchase orders. I knew Adrian would have falsely categorized the cheap nickel-iron composite under the budget for the expensive titanium-chromium alloy to hide the profit margin from his own investors. The audit report, delivered 2 months later, was the final, absolute proof of Adrian's professional malice. The report confirmed my hypothesis. The substitution was deliberate, documented in the internal financial ledger as a cost-cutting measure, and hidden from the external quality assurance reports. The cheaper material, the report concluded, would lead to a high probability of catastrophic, long-term failure after prolonged use. Adrian had knowingly poisoned my invention with a ticking time bomb of corporate fraud. He had sacrificed the integrity of the design, the very thing I cherished, for a massive, temporary boost in his personal wealth. The release of the internal audit report was a financial detonation. Adrian's investors, facing the massive product liability and securities fraud exposure, immediately filed suit against him, demanding his resignation and the return of their capital. Thermocore Solutions, the symbol of his genius, instantly dropped 60% in value, transforming from a darling of Silicon Valley into a catastrophic financial liability. The narrative of my instability was utterly drowned out by the undeniable, factual proof of Adrian's corporate criminal negligence. I watched the ensuing chaos from my quiet office, feeling a cold, profound satisfaction. Adrian, the man who had erased my name, was now facing the total annihilation of his empire, engineered by the very material truth he had tried to bury. He had betrayed me in front of everyone, smiling. Now, his entire world was crumbling, and he had no one to blame but his own insatiable greed. The combined legal and financial pressure was too great for Adrian to withstand. Facing the loss of his patent, massive lawsuits from his investors, and looming federal investigations into securities fraud, his high-powered legal team disintegrated. His final pathetic move was to approach me directly, bypassing all legal counsel, in a desperate attempt to negotiate a private final settlement. He sent a frantic handwritten note to my old secure workshop address, pleading for a meeting. I agreed, but only on my terms. A single private meeting in a neutral public park in Portland, ensuring I had witnesses and control over the environment. I met him in the fading light of a cold October afternoon. Adrian, once impeccably dressed, looked disheveled, his eyes wild with terror and exhaustion. He immediately launched into a rambling, tearful plea. "Eliot, please, I'm begging you. You have to call off the IP fund. You have to tell the USPTO it was a mistake. I'll give you everything back. I'll give you the company. I'll give you double the money. Just save my name. My life is over." He was completely broken. The smooth smile and practiced arrogance replaced by the raw, desperate fear of a man facing total ruin. I let him finish his plea, watching the complete, self-inflicted collapse of the man who had destroyed my life. Then I spoke, my voice low and steady, holding the full, cold weight of my 4 years of silent endurance. "You stole my life's work, Adrian, and then you poisoned it with a fraudulent alloy for a short-term profit. You smiled as you spread lies, calling me unstable, irrelevant. You betrayed the science, the industry, and me. You didn't just commit fraud. You betrayed the truth of the design. I delivered my final unyielding terms. I don't want your company. It's built on a lie and is toxic. I want 2 things. First, you will sign a notarized, irrevocable affidavit assigning full and sole authorship of the core temp patent to me, Eliot Vance, and withdrawing all prior slanderous claims. Second, you will release a public, full-page statement, written by my attorney, explicitly detailing the material substitution fraud and the subsequent invalidity of the core temp patent, ensuring the entire industry understands the truth of your negligence and my original design's integrity. Do that, and the IP fund will cease its civil suit against you, allowing your investors to clean up the wreckage." Adrian collapsed onto a nearby bench, his hands over his face, sobbing. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "You're going to destroy me, Eliot." I replied, "You destroyed yourself, Adrian. I just delivered the final report." He nodded, a defeated man signing his professional death warrant. I walked away, leaving him in the cold silence of the park, having reclaimed not just my invention, but the unassailable truth of my professional honor. Wow, you've stayed with me through the absolute darkness of betrayal and witnessed the quiet, complete, scientific demolition of a corrupt empire. If you felt that powerful surge of vindication, that burning necessity to see justice served, then you know why these stories matter. We are a community built on the bedrock of turning intellectual theft into an engine of truth. If you haven't already, please take a moment to gently tap that subscribe button and affirm the power of the evidence. And now, my deepest, most heartfelt invitation. We all carry a secret truth about a time someone stole our idea or claimed our work. Share your story of that injustice and the single piece of evidence you wish you could reveal. Your honesty and courage fuel this channel. Also, please suggest any deeply emotional, human-focused themes you want to see explored next. Thank you for being a genuine, authentic part of this fight. The execution of the final terms was swift and absolute. Within 24 hours, Adrian's lawyer delivered the signed notarized documents, the irrevocable patent assignment to me, Eliot Vance, and the signed public retraction statement detailing the material substitution fraud. The IP fund immediately withdrew its civil suit against Adrian, turning the financial chaos back over to the institutional investors who were now responsible for managing the fallout from the invalidated patent. The system, once leveraged by Adrian's deceit, was now correcting itself entirely in my favor. The retraction statement hit the news and industry wires like a seismic event. It was not a vague apology. It was a detailed, technical confession, confirming the fraudulent material substitution and the subsequent invalidity of the core temp patent. Adrian Sterling, the celebrated genius, was instantly transformed into the laughingstock and the pariah of the sustainable energy sector. The narrative he had spent years crafting, that I was unstable and he was the reliable expert, was utterly obliterated by his own signature. His entire reputation was burned down, engineered by the scientific truth he tried to bury. I was immediately reinstated in the industry, not as an unstable exile, but as the true inventor of the only working solution to the thermal regulation crisis. The USPTO formally recognized me as the sole patent holder of the Aura system. The investors who had once scorned me now lined up, desperate to fund the clean, uncompromised version of my technology. The financial recovery was immediate and total. My patent, now valid and clean, was valued in the billions, guaranteeing my financial freedom and securing the legacy of my invention. Adrian, stripped of his patent, his company, and his reputation, faced a quiet, humiliating ruin. He was barred from any further involvement in the sustainable energy sector and became the target of a massive securities fraud investigation launched by his former investors. The man who betrayed me in front of everyone, smiling, was now hiding from the truth he once created, facing legal and financial annihilation. My life transformed from that of a struggling, marginalized inventor into the undisputed authority in my field. I used a portion of the recovery funds to establish Aura Dynamics, a clean, ethically driven tech company built around my thermal regulation system. The core principle of the new company was absolute material integrity and unwavering transparency, the exact opposite of Adrian's fraudulent empire. I hired a new team of engineers who valued scientific purity over corporate greed, ensuring that the Aura system would scale without compromise. The success of Aura Dynamics was immediate and immense. The sustainable energy sector, desperate for a clean, stable solution, embraced my technology. My focus wasn't on pure profit. It was on establishing a new, ethical standard in the industry. I became a keynote speaker at global energy forums, sharing my story not as a tale of revenge, but as a cautionary lesson in the catastrophic consequences of compromised material science. I used the shame of Adrian's lies to preach the gospel of unassailable scientific truth. The most profound shift was internal. The shame and rage I had carried for years evaporated, replaced by a quiet, unshakable confidence. I had successfully transformed the greatest betrayal of my life into the foundation of my greatest achievement. Adrian had thought my life was over. He was right. The old, naive life was over, replaced by a life of absolute power, purpose, and integrity. Adrian's professional obliteration was absolute. He was convicted of securities fraud and sentenced to a term of 3 years in federal prison, the legal consequence of his greed, and the material lie he thought I could never expose. His empire was completely dismantled, and every asset he acquired through his fraudulent scheme was liquidated for restitution. I had not only reclaimed my invention, but had forced the entire system to punish the malice that had tried to erase me. The years that followed were dedicated to expanding my new, ethical legacy. Aura Dynamics became the benchmark for technological integrity. I established the Eliot Vance Foundation for Ethical Material Science, a nonprofit dedicated to funding young engineers who prioritize scientific purity over market expediency. a living counterpoint to the moral decay Adrian represented. My life was now defined by purposeful creation, far removed from the emotional toxicity of the past. I found a quiet joy in the solitude of my rebuilt workshop, the scent of solder now signaling creation, not despair. I was back where I belonged, in the exhilarating pursuit of invention, but this time, with the security and authority to ensure my work would never be compromised again. The name Eliot Vance, once whispered with pity and doubt, was now synonymous with genius and unshakable integrity. The true, final confirmation of my victory came, unexpectedly, 5 years after the trial. I received a small, thin package delivered to the Foundation's office. Inside was a single used press badge from an old tech conference. Tucked beneath it was a handwritten note, simple and utterly devoid of the former malice. Eliot, you won. I saw your interview on the news. You built what I ruined. The shame is absolute. I remember every word you spoke that day in the park. I am paying for the lie. You are building the truth. It was unsigned, but the desperate, defeated tone was unmistakable. Adrian Sterling. I looked at the note and felt a profound, cold detachment. He wasn't begging for money. He was acknowledging the complete, permanent success of my vengeance. He was confessing that the memory of my unyielding truth was his eternal punishment. He was hiding from the truth he once created, and I was the one who had forced him into the shadows. I filed the note away, not as a trophy of revenge, but as the final, absolute proof of the moral balance restored. My focus returned to the Foundation. I used my story as a powerful educational tool, traveling to engineering schools and business forums, sharing the necessary lesson. The truth of your design is the only thing that can withstand corporate malice. I taught them that professional excellence is the most effective weapon against professional betrayal. My return to the industry was absolute. I was invited to speak at the very same venture capital conference where Adrian had stolen my invention years prior. I walked onto the stage not as a hopeful petitioner, but as the undisputed authority, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company based entirely on the technology Adrian had invalidated. I spoke not about him, but about the science, the purity of the material, and the necessity of integrity. The final irony was that Adrian's stolen patent, the source of his betrayal, was now the unshakable legal foundation of my honest empire. He had handed me the most valuable asset in the world, and I had used it to secure my purpose and build a legacy of integrity. He thought I would be broken forever, but his malice had merely served as the catalyst for my greatest achievement. My life today is proof that the greatest professional successes can be born from the deepest personal betrayals. I stand here, not as Eliot Vance, the victimized inventor, but as the founder and CEO of Aura Dynamics and the head of a major ethical science foundation. My empire is built on the unassailable rock of my own integrity and scientific excellence. Adrian Sterling betrayed me in front of everyone, smiling, with the arrogant confidence that his polish would defeat my truth. He was wrong. For years, I stayed silent while he spread lies. Then I told the truth and burned his empire down, not with fire, but with the cold, scientific fact of his own greed. He thought I was broken forever. He was simply blind to the quiet, analytical strength that built the technology in the first place. I had the patience of a true engineer and the strategy of a scientist who never tolerates systemic failure. I came back stronger, more focused, and more formidable, and I engineered his total, comprehensive fall. The ultimate victory is not the money or the title, but the unshakable peace that comes from knowing you survived complete destruction and rebuilt a life based entirely on truth. He hides from the truth he once created, and I continue to build the legacy he tried to steal, ensuring that his professional life remains a permanent, cautionary tale of ultimate failure